I was 5 years old when I learned how to shuffle a deck of cards. I specifically remember because growing up, my family's favorite game was double solitaire. We still play double solitaire whenever we're together. And I'm definitely the best in my family, and you absolutely should not verify this claim with my cousins. I love playing cards. And when I say that card games have taken over my life, I'm actually talking about a different type of card game and a different type of cards. A trading card game, or TCG, is a type of card game that mixes strategic deck building elements with the features of trading cards. And there's one TCG that I just learned to play that I'm super interested in and that inspired this video. I recently learned how to play the new League of Legends TCG Riftbound while I was at PAX East, and I absolutely loved it.
Boom!
I didn't know there was a board wipe.
Yes. Yep.
What are you doing in return?
Something good.
This is an Anna deck.
I'm having fun.
Just after PAX, I had the opportunity to fly to Riot headquarters for the Riftbound Summit, and I learned more about Riftbound and had the chance to play the game a little more. While there, I got to build my own deck and demo the 4-person multiplayer mode and play a few games of the 1v1 mode as well. And as someone who plays a ton of different TCGs, I'm not exaggerating when I say that this was one of the quickest TCGs to pick up, and I think it might be one of the most fun to play. I haven't stopped thinking about Riftbound since I got home from the summit, and there are a few Riftbound mechanics that I found myself circling back to and thinking about. Personally, I think that one of the most interesting parts of games are their mechanics and how those mechanics introduce randomness to the game. Games wouldn't be fun if you knew exactly what cards each person would play and who would win before you even started playing. Although I'll note that for years, my older cousin would win every single solitaire game we played, but how the tables have turned. We'll just have to have our rematch when we get together in a few weeks. Anyways, randomness is an important part of games, and there are different types of randomness. The most common form of mechanical randomness in card games is shuffling. Shuffling introduces an element of uncertainty, that randomness, which means there's a mix of skill and luck needed to win. The point of shuffling your deck is to ensure that neither you nor the people you're playing with know the order of your deck. This is an important step to make sure that you can't predict the card that you're going to draw. Without proper shuffling, players can exploit patterns or the order of cards, which leads to unfair advantages. Shuffling is important, but also a little more complicated than it might initially appear. And while there are different ways that people shuffle, some are much more fair than others. The most common way that people shuffle their card decks is some variation of a riffle shuffle. If done properly and enough times, riffle shuffling will randomize your deck. You may have also seen someone pile shuffle. When you're pile shuffling cards, you deal cards into a number of piles. Then the piles are stacked on top of each other or mixed together. The trick with pile shuffling, though, is that it's deterministic and does not randomize your cards at all. When you're pile shuffling, you're ensuring that cards that were next to each other are now separated. And since you ensure those cards are separated, you know something about the order of the deck. You know the cards that were previously next to each other are no longer next to each other. Some variations of the pile shuffle attempts to make it slightly more random by dealing the cards into piles in a random order. But even then, you should definitely make sure you're riffle shuffling your deck afterwards to truly randomize your deck. It's easy to unintentionally shuffle your deck in a way that gives you some additional information about the order of your cards and deck. Shuffling your deck correctly takes time, and especially when playing in a competitive format, shuffling correctly and giving your opponent the opportunity to cut your deck is super important. So what does Riftbound do about this? While at the summit, the designers of Riftbound commented that they specifically minimized the times that you need to shuffle your deck in the game. Quick aside, I won't be going through the specific rules of how to play Riftbound, and instead, I'm overanalyzing the math behind shuffling in Riftbound. So I'll link an article on how to play the game in the description below. That said, I often can't help myself, and I will touch on the rules a little bit, but just a little bit, I promise. Okay. When you're sitting down to play Riftbound, you need to shuffle your deck before drawing your opening hand. You might love your hand, and then in most games, you will never need to shuffle again. Or you might hate your hand, and you might need to take the one allowed mulligan. This is where you can choose up to 2 cards in your hand set those cards aside, draw back up to hand size, and recycle the cards that were set aside. But wait, it says recycle, not shuffle back in. In Riftbound, recycling is placing one or more cards from a specific zone and putting them on the bottom of the respective deck. That means that even if you take the allowed mulligan, you only need to properly shuffle your deck one time before the game begins, and then you will likely never need to shuffle your deck again. I do say likely because after some digging, there's one additional time you might need to shuffle your deck. If you go through all of the cards in your main deck, you burn out. And in that situation, you would need to shuffle your trash back into your main deck and choose an opponent to gain a point. As people play the game more, we'll have a better idea of how often someone's going to burn out and need to add additional shuffling into the game. But just from reading the rules, I really love this. Properly shuffling can take a bit of time, and pausing the game to fairly shuffle breaks up that game and introduces more moments where people might intentionally or unintentionally improperly shuffle their deck. How do we know if we fairly shuffled our Riftbound deck? With 40 cards in your deck, and both your champion legend and chosen champions starting outside of that deck face up, there are 38 factorial different ways that your deck could be ordered, which is around 5.23 times 10 to the 44, or over 523 tredecillion. Yes, I had to look up that particular number name. That's a functionally unlimited number of ways your deck can be ordered. Now, in some card games, you need to consider if the order of your deck has an adequate number of playable action cards and resource cards. However, Riftbound tackles this in a really interesting way. Each turn you get 2 new runes from a separate deck of 12 cards. Systems that mix resources and action cards together rely much more on the mechanical randomness of shuffling. And so by separating out the resources, Riftbound de-emphasizes the need to shuffle, and I'm personally really into it. Anyway, I think that this conscious choice to minimize the amounts that you need to shuffle while playing Riftbound is super interesting, and I can see in many different areas of the game design how they lean into this choice. And it's pretty cool. I'm curious what y'all think about this. Thanks for watching. I'm excited to explore Riftbound more and have some ideas for future videos. Let me know in the comments what you think about the Riftbound TCG. And if you want to chat more about randomness and shuffling, I actually have a more detailed video on this topic where I dive into shuffling in Magic the Gathering, and that's right over here.